Hey everyone, Bateman here. Today we're talking about timecode. Our friends over at TMB have loaned us a Proplex Code Bridge and Proplex Code Commander, which we're going to use today to bring in timecode 4 different ways to Pixera. Using the Pixera proprietary USB to XLR dongle, via an audio interface using LTC, as well as ArtNet timecode and MIDI timecode. Each of these is a little bit different to bring into Pixera, but all operate the same once you have brought them in and are seeing timecode in Pixera. At the end of the video, we'll talk about some other timecode functionality like hot regions. Let's jump in. So I have a project here, and the first thing to talk about with timecode is where we find these settings. And primarily, we find them either in our timeline tab, in the timeline inspector. We have this property group called SIMPTY here. And here we can see all of our timeline timecode settings. But in order to get timecode to be received here, we would need to first bring it into Pixera in general. And the way we do that is we go to the settings tab and we go to the SIMPTY timecode parameter. And here we can choose different types of timecode to bring in, so how we are bringing them in. And we're going to start with the USB type. This type is a proprietary dongle that we sell, so if you don't have one, you can contact your local distributor or sales partner to get one. And if we go to the web GUI, we have our Proplex Code Commander here. It's got a nice web GUI. And I can hit this D button to start my timecode, and we can see timecode's running here. And we can see that that is starting to come in. So we can see that we've got an input here. We have a bunch of different options here. We can change the format of our timecode to be something else if it's coming in as a different timecode. And we can change the output level if we were to be sending it out. So if you want to send out timecode versus receiving it. So we're receiving timecode, which is great. And I'm going to go to my compositing tab, and we can see that my mode is set to receive. And so I'm at 1 hour, 39 seconds, and we can go jump to my time here. We see 1:44:45. So that's actually ticking up. And if I hit this D preset again, it will stop the time code. And we can see that my time code's still running over here. And that's because my no input behavior is set to continue. So let's go ahead and change this to pause. And we'll see that now this time code has synced up to the time that we have down here. And you can see on the code bridge that we can still see what that last read time was. So should be 1 hour, 0 minutes, 52 seconds, and 12 frames. If we turn on in our workspace toolbar, we have this show timecode monitor. And so we can bring that up and we can see this is the timecode that's coming in, 1 hour, 0 minutes, 52 seconds. Notice here, it's not in frames, it's actually in milliseconds here. And if you were to do the math, 200 milliseconds is equal to 12 frames if you were in a 60 frame per second, which this time code is in 60 frames per second. So if we wanted to, we could change our FPS of our timeline to get that these frames to match up with the time code coming in, but it is all the same time. The frames are just probably a little off from what the 30 frame per second counter is counting down here. If we want, we can actually connect this timecode to another timeline. So if I hit the plus button here, we can make another timeline. Let's set this one to 30. And let's set this one to receive as well with a pause. And you can see that that has now set to 1 hour, 0 minutes, 52 seconds, and 6 frames as opposed to 12 frames because we've halved that frames per second value. All right, so the next way we're going to bring in timecode is via audio. And the way we can do that one is I'm just going to go to device type, and I'm going to switch this over to audio. And we can see that we immediately get a notification here that says, please go to settings audio to configure audio input as SMPTE LTC source. So I'm going to go to my audio settings over here. And if we look down, we have audio input for SMPTE LTC. As we can see, we've already picked our audio driver here, and we have a Motu M4 audio interface hooked up via USB to this machine. And we can see that we've got some options here of those incoming channels. So if I turn one of these to 30, and let's go ahead and go back to our web GUI, and I'm just going to hit the generator again. And we can see that we have timecode coming in. Now, one of the great things about ProPlex's Code Commander is I'm actually spitting out all of these types of timecode at the same time. So I'm spitting out MIDI, I'm spitting out ArtNet, I'm spitting out an LTC over an XLR cable into my audio interface, and I'm sending out an additional XLR stream to the USB proprietary adapter we were talking about earlier. So I'm not having to change anything on the timecode side, as I've already configured this device to spit out all the kinds of timecode that I might need. So we can see our timecode coming in here. And if we go to compositing, we'll see our timecode's tracking right along. We didn't even need to change anything on the timeline side. All we did was point to a different source for the timecode in our settings SMPTE timecode. We just said, hey, listen to the audio device now instead of listening to the USB proprietary adapter. I can go back to this web GUI here, and I'll hit stop again. And let's just confirm that our time on the ProPlex code bridge is the same. And it looks like it all is matching up here. So that's 700 milliseconds equals 42 frames in 60 or 21 frames in 30. All right, so we've talked about two different ways to bring in timecode, both of them using some form of LTC to bring that timecode into Pixera. But what if we want to use something like ArtNet timecode or MIDI timecode? Well, for that, we can navigate to our settings, and in our SMPTE timecode settings, we can change our device type to API. And from here, we'll navigate over to Control, where we can go search for the ArtNet timecode in module. And we can see that as soon as I bring that in, it's seeing a connection. This module is reading some sort of timecode in. We can specify which adapter we want if we're looking for timecode on a specific adapter instead of any adapter. And this description just gives you a little reminder of how we want to configure this thing in Control. And what we want to do is we want to connect this timecode to timeline to each of our timelines in the Pixera module. Now, before we do that, let's just double check that we have timecode coming in. And I can use the code commander to do that. And look at that. We see we've got 1 hour, 2 seconds, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and stop that. And let's go find our timelines in here. So I'm going to take this timeline and I'm going to say get timelines. Let's grab both of these. And in each of these timelines, there's an action called set timecode input. It's right here. And so if I just click and drag this to here, and then let's navigate back to the compositing tab, go to our timelines. We can see we're starting to read some timecode. We'll check this timeline and make sure that we are set to receive. And let's set this to pause just in case it stops or we don't have any input. And I'll go back to my web GUI and hit start. And we can see we start getting timecode in. See that tracking here. We can see that tracking on the code bridge as well. I can go to Control and connect this to timeline 2. If we go find that action, set timecode input. And let's go to that timeline. We're not tracking right now because we haven't changed this to receive. set this to pause. And so I can scoot all the way out and we can see that that now pointer is tracking along. So that is ArtNet timecode. All right, so the last type of timecode I want to look at is coming in via MTC or MIDI timecode. Once again, the way we're going to do that is go to Settings, confirm that we're in API, and then we're going to go to Control again. And instead of using the ArtNet timecode in, I'm going to go find the MIDI module. And if we bring that in, we can see that we have a timecode folder here with the same timecode to timeline action. So these two modules, these two processes, the ArtNet timecode in or MIDI timecode in, actually function in very similar ways. In the case of MIDI, I'm going to select my MIDI in device, which in this case happens to be that Motu audio interface that we used earlier. And I'll init the module. We can see that I'm connected. And let's go to my code commander again, and let's hit play. And once again, we can see that I've already pre-configured this code commander to send out MIDI. So I'm connected via MIDI between that code commander and this and the Motu. And so once again, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to find that set timecode input. I can connect that to timeline 1 and can connect this one to timeline 2. Set timecode input. Now, if we go back to compositing, we can see once again, we're tracking along. So once you've set up your timeline in the mode and confirmed your SMPTE settings here, it's really just a matter of either configuring your modules or configuring your audio to come in correctly. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of other timecode settings. Specifically, I want to talk about this general offset. This general offset is used to change the time on the timeline so that you don't have to, for example, program something at the 1 hour mark if you want it to show up over at the 0 mark of your timeline. So the way we can do that is I can go and I can set an offset here of 1 hour, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, and 0 frames. I'm going to hit enter. So that gives me a 1 hour offset. So that's going to offset my timeline 1 hour negative, so that when I receive timecode at 1 hour, I'm actually playing back at 0 on this timeline. So let's take a look at that in action. I'm going to go ahead to my Code Commander web UI, and I'm going to hit D preset to bring in timecode. And we can see that even though we're receiving 1 hour timecode here, we started playing back on timeline 1 at 0, whereas on timeline 2, we're still playing back at 1 hour. So you could use this general offset to program a bunch of songs for your tour, each at a different hour, or use it in other various ways if you're listening to specific pieces of time code for specific timelines. Additionally, we can use a feature that we have called hot regions to set up specific parts of the timeline that we want to be time coded versus not time coded. Let's look at that in action. So I'm going to stop my code here, and I'm going to open up my hot regions dialog by clicking on this button here. We could also add them using this plus button right here, or I can access that same dialog using this button in the timeline toolbar. And from here, if I click on the plus button, we can see we've added a region. We could specify its time and its duration. So if, for example, on timeline 1, I want to only be listening to timecode at 10 seconds, I can move that hot region to 10 seconds. I can say it's a 10-second duration. Let's make that 15. And this is just telling me what the timecode time is. So if I close that, let's go ahead and go to our web UI again. And I'm going to start this timecode. So we can see we're receiving timecode, but we're not actually following it on this timeline here until 10 seconds, where now we're listening. And we're going to listen all the way through for that 15 seconds. And now this timeline is no longer listening to timecode, so I can move my now pointer wherever I want. I could add another hot region here, and I could say I want this one to be at, let's make this 50 seconds, try and catch it. Yeah. So now we're listening to that chunk of timecode here for 10 seconds, and so on and so forth. I can also toggle these hot regions on and off by clicking this mute button or highlighting it and making sure that it's yellow, and then using this eyeball to toggle them on and off. So that's hot regions, really great way to have timecode be on specific parts of your timeline, or to have certain parts of your timeline be maybe queue-based and other parts be timeline-based.